Hello, dear friends. Our story today comes from the criminal records of the United States. On May 30th, 2011, Avril called the police and reported a shooting at a sporting goods store in California. She explained that her fiancé, Chris, had called her moments earlier, telling her he had heard gunshots in the warehouse of the sporting goods company where he worked. The company was owned by Chris's family. When the police arrived at the scene, they found one victim, Christopher, Chris's father. The body was discovered in the company's warehouse, riddled with multiple gunshot wounds. Investigators searched the area for the murder weapon, but found nothing, not even bullet casings. It was evident that the perpetrator had entered and exited the premises without leaving any signs of forced entry, leading investigators to suspect that either a professional was involved or that someone within the company had aided the crime. The first people questioned by investigators were Avril, who reported the incident, and her fiancé Chris, the son of the victim. Avril told them that Chris had called her around 3:15 p.m., sounding panicked and telling her what had happened. Chris, thinking the company was under attack, hid in one of the corners of the warehouse. Chris, on the other hand, told investigators that he had gone to work as usual that morning. At around 2 p.m., his father had taken the car to go to the company's warehouse, located across from the main building. When Chris found out, he grew suspicious of a possible break-in and decided to check on his father. Upon arriving, he heard gunshots. Through their investigation, police learned that Christopher was a self-made man and a good father to Chris and his brother Cody after separating from their mother. In 2008, Christopher had founded a sporting goods company, appointing Chris as the general manager. When reviewing witness statements, investigators began to suspect Chris. They questioned why he called his fiancée instead of dialing emergency services. When asked if he suspected anyone, Chris mentioned that both he and his father had recently received death threats. He suspected a man named Ron, a former employee of the company whom Christopher had fired. Witnesses confirmed that Ron had threatened to kill Christopher on the day he was dismissed. Police summoned Ron for questioning. While he admitted to threatening Christopher in front of the staff, he denied any involvement in the crime, claiming his threats were impulsive and not serious. Ron also provided an alibi, stating he had been out of town with his family at the time of the murder. Investigators verified his alibi and ruled him out as a suspect. Suspicion shifted back to Chris. The police obtained a search warrant for his home, where they discovered a rifle. Forensic experts suggested it might have been the murder weapon, so they seized it for further investigation. Looking into the company's financial records, the police discovered that Christopher had convinced several investors to fund his company, amassing significant capital in a short time. However, they also found that large sums of money had recently been withdrawn from the company's accounts, leaving only $44,000. Only 2 people had access to these funds, Christopher and his son Chris. This made Chris a suspect in an embezzlement case as well. Additionally, police reviewed Chris's phone records and found that he had been the last person to speak with his father before the shooting. However, there was a half-hour gap between that call and when Chris contacted his fiancée, contradicting his claim that he had called her immediately after hearing gunfire. When questioned again, Chris claimed that the company had been facing financial difficulties. Investigators pressed him on the half-hour delay before calling his fiancée and why he hadn't called the police first, but Chris could not provide a clear answer. He also stated that the rifle belonged to his father and that he wasn't aware his father even owned one. Despite the intense questioning, Chris denied all allegations. Lacking concrete evidence, police were unable to arrest him, as all the evidence was circumstantial. In December 2011, Avril visited the police station after a heated argument with Chris. She revealed the true content of his phone call to her. Chris had admitted to shooting his father and didn't know what to do. Based on Avril's testimony, Chris was arrested in February 2012 and charged with first-degree murder. Avril was also charged with obstruction of justice, but received only 2 months in prison after a plea deal. Chris confessed to the crime and explained that he hadn't intended to kill his father. The incident had occurred during a heated argument. Chris was sentenced to 13 years in prison. And now, dear friends, do you think the sentences given to Chris and Avril were fair, or do they need to be reconsidered? Share your opinions in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more updates.